Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Redgate. Why do I sound so? I sound like I'm doing some kind of crazy intro at a fair. Roll up, ladies and gentlemen. No, of course, it is
Sorry, you've
Redgate.
only just noticed. Like you
Yeah,
do this
okay.
every time.
It's true, and I do sound like I feel like my voice is trilling just all that little bit more. Anyway, welcome to the world of tomorrow.
Well, now you sound like you're about to introduce like Tales from the Crypt.
I think that was a Futurama line. Anyway, that of course today is Redgate DBAle. Woo!
Ooh.
That of course is Redgate 33. So we are currently at half of Chris Kurzweil's age. That's right, I can make age jokes too. Yeah, boy.
Hey! And three
Anyway.
times yours.
Oh no, that's going to infringe some copyright that's going to come down on our heads. Oh, welcome to DBL, folks.
Oh dear. So do it again.
Yeah, exactly. How many cartoon characters can we do the news as? Raggy, cataloging.
That's how to get out of all interviews, by the way. Just make sure you're playing Justin Bieber in the background.
That's a fair shout, actually. There you go. Top tips. Anyway, don't say we're never useful. Welcome back, of course, to Redgate DBL.
Oh yeah, but sorry, for all the people that was useful information for, it's not useful for us. It's useful for like the less than 1% of the world, but
that does interviews and doesn't want to be in the interviews. That's fair. But of course, that's right. Welcome everyone to Redgate DBL. It is a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Of course, I am, as always, Chris.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here too. My name is also Chris.
Yes. Yeah. See, there you go. A proper Chris and Chris. So that's fair enough. I like that. Now, Chris, today we're going to be covering a topic very close to my heart. And I think
every topic close to your heart.
You're close to my heart, Chris.
That didn't answer the question, but I'll allow it.
You sound like you're doing a catchphrase. It's good, but it's not the one. No, of course. Today is a very, very special day, of course, because we are celebrating
my birthday.
No.
Oh.
Wait, it's not your birthday yet.
That took you a while.
Yeah, give me a second. Anyway, no, of course we are celebrating, and that is because Monday, 21st of June, 2021 is a very, very important day in the calendar. And why?
It's International Giraffe Day.
Yay! International Giraffe Day. Absolutely. So do be sure to go out and learn some facts about giraffes. If I was better prepared, I would have prepared some facts about giraffes myself. Unfortunately, I haven't. I'm looking at Chris K and hoping that he's maybe prepared some facts about giraffes.
Did you know that there are 68,000 giraffes left in the world in the wild in 2020?
Oh, wow.
Which has declined 40% in the last 30 years.
So there you have it, folks. Giraffes, incredibly important parts of our ecosystem. Please do feel free to go and find any giraffe charity of your preference. Sponsor a giraffe, name them Chris, whatever you like. Go away
I like giraffes, don't get me wrong. And I don't want to see giraffes go. Are they an important part of the ecosystem? Are they the linchpin that holds everything together?
That's mosquitoes. But no.
I saw a study recently about saying that, mosquitoes being removed from the world would not in any way
impact anything except make this bump on my hand from where I got bitten last night go away. Thank you, mosquito, wherever you are. But of course, no, do go away and feel free to sponsor a giraffe. We love giraffes here at DBL for no other reason than they're pretty cool. But of course, today we're actually not going to be talking about, we are going to be talking a little bit about giraffes, but we've correlated this with our actual session. So today we're going to be talking about cataloging your data and why it's important. So we're going to cover things like, what do we mean when we say cataloging your database specifically? And the way that we're going to approach this is, of course, with a giraffe's view. We're going to get that really top level view, and we'll talk about how the giraffe relates to classifying your data estate in due course. But just before we do that, Chris, it's time for beer. So, Chris, what are you drinking today?
Today I have Hickory Clan Caviar. I don't know if you can see that or if...
I can see that, yeah.
It is a maple and pecan Danish stout from Turning Point.
Wait. A maple and pecan Danish stout.
Yes.
You're just trying to outdo my blueberry muffin stout, aren't you?
Maybe.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I today am drinking a St. Austell Brewery proper job. And the reason,
not working at all.
Which you can't actually see, there we go.
There you go.
Powerfully hopped IPA. And the reason why I'm drinking this particular beer today is because
you're an alcoholic.
Step one is admitting it. But of course, the reason why I'm drinking proper job is because a lot of people don't do a proper job when it comes to governance and finding where sensitive information exists across their estate. And I mean that in the more general sense. People do a half a job. They find the Excel sheets, they find the emails, and everything else. A whole bunch of structured and semi-structured data falls by the wayside. But no, they think they know where everything is. So
that was the biggest shoehorn since I tried to get in my wedding shoes 3 years ago, Chris. That was great.
Well, you shouldn't have ordered size 5 shoes, Chris. So let's get these open.
Cool.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh, that was terrible. There's no chance you'll hear that.
You're terrible.
But I'm going to pour it. Pour it anyway. There we go.
Using the headset mic makes this interesting. That does mean I get to smell as I pour. Fantastic. Which I thought would be more prominent. Oh, well.
Well, this one, actually, this proper job smells absolutely divine. It smells like a really fruity, really, really hoppy IPA. Oh, it's 5.5%, so it's pretty solid, and it has a really nice color to it. I don't know if you can see that. If anyone's watching the recording, or if anyone's currently drinking a proper job, it smells great. They've done a proper job.
Good old zoom backgrounds and held objects. They work really, really well.
Oh.
Proper job.
Oh, that's really nice. It has a crisp, bitter finish, and I agree with this. It is Chris approved.
Glad to hear it. Well, this is really good. It smells not what I was expecting. It smells almost sour and quite countryside-y, but tastes like a sweet stout.
You've got yourself a sour stout.
It doesn't taste sour. It just smells kind of.
You sure it's still in date?
Let's hope so. Anyway, beer doesn't go out of date. It just gets more lively.
Potent. Oh, this is very nice. I could definitely drink a second of these. It's a good thing. When we bought them, we actually bought them from a local supermarket that rhymes with Besco. And
Sainsbury's.
Yes, exactly. And I had a choice of one 500 milliliter bottle or 4 big cans. So we were kind of umming and ahhing, and I decided for the one bottle. So I'm glad I did, because it's as I've said in previous DBAles, it's quite quaffable, which means that I will get through it somewhat fast, somewhat rapidly.
Compared to all the other types of beer in the world that you drink slowly.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Only if I don't like it.
Anyway, speaking of doing things quickly, let's talk about data classification.
What a tenuous link. It's perfect. I love it. So absolutely. So today we're going to be talking about database classification and cataloging your data. And it's, we've kind of alluded to it at times before. We've spoken about it a bit, but we've never really spoken about it at length. Like we've never really talked about what database classification means and how it can be used. And the problem is when it comes to databases in particular, and we'll, just as a bit of background, right? The number of times we get the question, like DBAs or developers, IT architects, so data architects, largely enterprise architects, they might start getting the questions like, oh, where is our sensitive data? Or how much risk does this system pose? If we're moving this system to the cloud, how much sensitive data are we storing on that particular database or on that particular instance? And the problem is when something that we've observed, and might not be true at all. It might just be a subset of people. Was it, you're a mathematician? Was it like set bias or something like that? Sample bias?
Sampling bias, yeah.
There you go. So it might be a sampling bias, but a lot of the people that I come across have this approach, this almost giraffe's eye approach, where they're way, way, way up. Bear with me. They're way, 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 way up on the where the giraffe's eye is, and they're looking down and they see grass, and they're like, right. Yep, that's all grass down there. That is 100% all grass. But the problem is what they don't see is the gaps. Okay, they're seeing it from so far up that they think that simply by classifying your estate, I say simply, definitely not, finding your data citizenship, I think, as one of the major kind of data classification tools calls it, it is not an easy thing to do because you've got so much to find, everything from Excel spreadsheets through to, like I said, emails, .text files. That one time you took a screenshot of a report output and then dumped it into an email and sent it to yourself at home. There's a billion ways that these things can go wrong. Well, not wrong, but how we can miss stuff.
Right.
So you need to have the right way of doing it. But
the giraffe's eye view, I'm still
exactly
not got over that.
But the problem is a lot of people worry about the stuff that is easily missed, right? They worry about Excel spreadsheets and documents and XYZ. So that's where like 95% of people are putting their effort as they're going, oh my gosh, where are all these Excel files? Sounding like 1940s reporters. Oh my gosh, where have all these Excel files come from? Yeah, you hear me, see? But
that was a very good Atlantic accent.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. If you don't like my accent, you're going to be sleeping with the fishes, boyo. Anyway. So the problem is there is
incidentally, if there's anyone in the world who actually talks like that, please get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you.
We want you on the podcast. It's just like, hey, how you doing, Trevor? Yeah, I'm doing all right. You see, it's a speech impediment. It's just what I got.
Me and the boys.
Yeah, I just have all of them on. It's just basically the Antil mob from Wacky Races.
Yes, exactly. Bootlegging whiskey. That would be an interesting episode of DBAle for sure.
Welcome to DB Whiskey, where 3 drams and we're down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, 95% of people are not really paying attention to the thing that's staring them in the face. When you think about an organization and how it gathers data, if only we had a place, I guess you could say a base of some kind, some kind of store of data that we keep and use and serve our customers with. Oh, wait a second, there are these relational databases that we've got coming out the wazoo that we've just ignored. And a lot of tools and solutions that scan for semi and unstructured data they don't necessarily have everything in place to tackle databases, because there's almost this kind of implicit belief that people know where stuff is in a database. But the number of times I say to people, hey, how much do you know about this database? The answer is, not much. Or, oh, I'll go ask Dave or Caroline, Suzanne, because they know this system. And it's, it is just another major silo of people's understanding of their data in an organization.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting point. Like unstructured data classification is a really hard problem.
Yes.
It's not easy, but that's not really what we're talking about so much. It is a tough problem, and it's fundamentally different to a structured data classification problem.
Yeah, we know where all the data is.
Because there's such different approaches, you use different technologies for it. So
yes.
Anything that says, okay, well, you just use the one magic solution for the whole lot is just not true.
Yeah.
That'll be a Frankenstein's monster of lots of different things stitched together, most likely.
Well, what you need is good, they say that, a lot of people, I think if we refer back to the state of database DevOps 2020, I think it was, that had this particular statistic, and it was like people had gone from trying to shoehorn everything into 1, 2, 3 tools to being open to actually taking on 10, 11, 12 different tools to achieve their goals. Because, you might have, so a good example, when we talked about monitoring databases, there are times where you will need something that monitors your databases because it gives you insight into, weights and deadlocks. It gives you insight into like temp DB contention, all of these different things that you're not going to get from a network or an application monitoring solution, was a good example. Mm-hmm. And the same is true about data classification. There are some amazing solutions out there for finding your semi-structured and unstructured data. So pick one off the tree, Calibra or OneTrust. They've both got solutions for this. There's obviously also Microsoft have Purview as well, which does a pretty good job too, but I've not delved into it all too much, so I can't really speak with much authority there. But the point is, there are solutions for this, and then comes the database. And the funny thing is, when we say, okay, understand the database, there's such a thing as finding where sensitive information exists and tagging that information, but it's what we do with that information that makes the difference. And it's not enough. Governance can sit all day long and take a look at their dashboard and say, we've got 1,198 Excel sheets that hold sensitive information. And the same is true of databases. But what's the process? Well, those Excel sheets, new Excel sheets that get created, we capture. But what about database changes? What about when one of our columns gets removed or renamed or moved, or you move data around to other tables or XYZ? And we'll get to that when we talk about what you do with classifications. But let's bring it right back. So, Chris, what do we mean when we say classifying the database specifically?
That's interesting, because I'm thinking about this like with that old school records keeper hat on, and you think of like an individual record, and you think like that record has to be classified and identified and then maintained in the correct and proper way. So for example, a document, you get a document or an email that comes in, you classify it, and then you store it. And back in the olden days, before computers, that would be a letter that you'd put in a filing cabinet. Whereas these days, I don't know why Bristolian is my like go-to olden days.
I was going to say, they know what computers are in Bristol.
So you have your file, you put in the filing cabinet, and that filing cabinet is kept for 10, 20 years, and then it all gets moved into a separate warehouse, and then 10 years after that, it all gets binned. Fine, okay. In the digital world, there's a slight difference, which is the document that comes in, it doesn't get put in the filing cabinet. It gets kind of tagged with this metadata, and you have this concept that it's part of a classification. Not only that, but the record itself. So if you think about an email, that entire thing is one record. If you think about a database, what is the record? It's probably going to be the row, right? Or is it an individual as a whole within that database? Like, is it Chris Unwin everywhere he appears? Is that the record? It's very hard to say. So maybe you just need a completely different view of this. So what a lot of the technologies out there that will think about kind of structured content, they'll still have that records management view of the world, whereby you take everything on, you classify it, you keep it as a record, and that defines how that record is kept longer term. With databases, that just doesn't work. You can't really take like a row in a database as a record and maintain it that way, because you'll suddenly find that you've got 100 million records just from one database. It's kind of nonsensical.
So the interesting thing there is that it's actually easier than going, is what the data community call R-bar.
R-bar?
R-bar. Row by agonizing row. R-bar. So the way that we look at this is instead we break it down into something even more generic. And there's something even more generic about rows in a database is how those rows are constructed. Like, what is the structure of those rows? Now, if you think about it, if you transform it onto its other axis and you start thinking about columns, you know how a row is made up, because when you look at the row, you know that the first entry in that record is going to be an ID, and the second is going to be a name, and the third is going to be an age. And that is defined by the structure of the table on which the record is held. So it makes sense that instead of saying, okay, well, each row by row, we'll figure out which one's sensitive, what we do is make a more generic approach and say, okay, anything in this column is going to contain a sensitive value. Now, obviously, this breaks down when it comes to things like JSON, you know, if you're working with a NoSQL database, but we're talking relational databases for the moment.
Yep.
And
structured databases.
Structured relational databases, exactly. And the interesting thing here is that because you know how these rows are going to be structured, because you know how the rows and columns fit together, it's pretty fair to say that if we've got a column called date of birth, that, in that column, in basically every row, if it's not null, then almost every single row is going to be a sensitive value. Now, what we mean when we say cataloging the database is actually specifically around tagging columns, like we've just described. It's easier to tag more generic columns than to try and go row by row. But the problem is, we still have columns across tables, across databases, across instances. There's still a lot of columns to do. But it's still important to do this process, because once you have all of the columns tagged, you then effectively go about saying, okay, when I look at this database, when I get the question, what kind of information do I hold? You can look at a database in a single glance and say, that database is full of personally identifiable information. Approximately 65% of the columns held on the tables in this database are sensitive because we have them marked down as X, Y, and Z. And that's why it's important, I suppose, to always define a good taxonomy. Because if you don't have the right tags, then you're just tagging these columns as sensitive, non-sensitive. And that doesn't really give you any more insight other than, yes, someone theoretically... and that's what classification is a very subjective job. So if you go into it and you say, yeah, that's sensitive, and then you look at it, it might be a date signed up for a service. Well, maybe that's sensitive, maybe it's not. It could be a varying different level. You could have multiple users who signed up on that date, and that's going to be less sensitive than a date of birth. So what we need is not just
it's
info,
an interesting one there, right?
Context.
It is like subjective, but your goal, I think, is like I don't know, the business's goal is going to be to try and make it as non-subjective as possible, right? They want to be able to apply rules that will be able to say this is in, this is out, this is in, this is out.
Exactly. But with those rules and with that approach, still comes a level of, well, we need to apply a number of tags to ensure that the metadata associated with these columns is appropriate, right? It gives us insight. And that's the thing when it comes to databases, is not everyone has that insight. And if a DBA leaves, a dev leaves, who has worked with that database for a number of years,
yeah,
then you lose a huge pool of knowledge.
And that's a terribly scary thing for a business. Like having any kind of knowledge just stored in someone's head rather than in an application or on a knowledge base somewhere. Yeah, terrifying.
Exactly. So when we look at the giraffe's eye view from the top of the organization, you've got this, board of directors, you've got this CIO looking down and thinking, hey, I can see all of the grass. So I know where the food is, I know where the mud is, I know where the water is, I know where everything is. But what they can't see is the ant's nest, the fire ant's nest, right? Which is the database. It's a mess. Nobody knows exactly what's going on in there. Nobody knows where everything is. And then a DBA leaves, and all of a sudden you lose your expert in that particular set of databases. And handover documentation is always appreciated. But does handover documentation often work out well for everyone? I can't think of any situation where I've ever been given handover documentation where it's covered everything. You can't substitute human knowledge.
No, definitely not.
So what we need is both the giraffe's eye view. We need something that helps us manage our wider estate, like things like, Purview, like Calibra, like OneTrust. But what we also need is visibility around the database. So we need something that allows us to ensure that we are keeping the metadata about these columns up to date. And realistically, when that fits into kind of organizational compliance, this is where things look very different, because people start thinking, okay, it's really easy to be compliant. We just find all the semi and unstructured data we've got, even the structured data. But then we start talking about differences. And that's, you and I have both come across situations where people have put metadata about columns into an Excel spreadsheet, for instance.
Yep. It's probably the first port of call for a lot of people who are kind of experimenting with this, put it all in Excel. And I've seen some really good Excel documents for what it's worth that
absolutely.
Do actually a lot of the work for you, but ultimately, someone has to maintain that. And you almost kind of transfer the knowledge from one thing to another. Like as soon as the person who makes the Excel leaves, then you've got the problem.
Exactly, because they leave and you lose access to it, or people forget it exists, people forget to update it.
Or just how it works.
Yeah, exactly. So really the problem is that it becomes an additional administrative task.
Oh, and yeah.
That's the killer. The moment you give developers, the moment you give devs, the moment you give compliance, and the moment you bring compliance and governance in, compliance and governance care about more high-level specifics, right? They care about, are we compliant? Are we following best practices? Are we following these standards? Are we adhering to these policies? They don't have time to worry about the day-to-day lives of developers making changes to databases. So, they don't want to be involved in this. So how do the developers and the DBAs specifically handle changes to the database when it comes to affecting tables and columns that ultimately are going to start collecting classified information?
So I guess there's two kind of sides to this as well. Like, we've been talking a lot about classifying columns, but then there's also the compliance side about, I guess, compliant development, and bringing compliance into development in other ways. And most notably, that's going to be source control. Versioning a database like you would your app code means that you track changes and see what gets changed at what. And, eventually we can start thinking about doing things like locking down testing and production environments to make sure that people don't have access who shouldn't have access. Developers shouldn't be the ones who are affecting change in production, because that means that they've now got a level of access they probably shouldn't have. I saw this great post the other day about someone who basically didn't have access to production to do a lot of changes that they needed to do, but did have access to create stored procedures. So they basically put everything through stored procedures. Like, they would write stored procedures to create tables. They would write stored procedures to access data. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. There's so many different things that you can manage here. So yeah,
That's insane.
best off to just remove the question entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that stands out, and I think it's something that you and I talk about an awful lot, is that it's process, right? It's people, it's process, it's tooling. It is part of that whole kind of DevOpsy cycle. If a developer makes a change to a table in the development environment, then what we should have is some kind of process that allows them to easily flag that new column, that new table, is going to store sensitive information like phone numbers, like dates of birth, like names, like vehicle registrations. And that should be part of the development work as much as committing to version control is, as much as handling merge conflicts is. All of the parts of these processes should just natively flow together. And if you have a side administrative process like, oh, by the way, make sure you go and update that Excel spreadsheet, nobody's going to want to do that. Nobody is going to do that, and it's going to fall apart at some point. But if your deployment of that work hinges on you actually completing the necessary processes, including classifying any new columns, then you hit a point that we call ongoing organizational compliance, right? It is part of the process. So we add a column, we tag it with its metadata. That gets built and deployed just the same way as our just the same way as our actual change would. Hypothetically, let's take a Redgate component, SQL change automation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We make a table change, generate a migration script, source control that migration script. We build the database from scratch. We deploy it to integration. This is where we can now carry out our tests. So we flag the column as being sensitive, do a few tests, and then the classification alongside the actual deployment of this new column, they just go up from integration to testing to staging to prod. Bish, bash, bosh, done. And it's all part of a process that means that we persist changes throughout the pipeline. And it's that
Makes
straightforward.
Simple and straightforward.
Exactly. The hard part is actually making sure that you can do the classification in the first place. Many people think that classifying a database is going to be an easy job, and actually it's not. So definitely not. And there are two sides to the coin. How do we get classified? And then how do we stay classified? And that's true of anything. That's true of, structured data and unstructured data, semi-structured data. And it's this play off of the two, where a lot of people get halfway through the first, getting classified, and they go, oh, this is too much effort, I can't be bothered, and they give up, or they don't have the right capabilities at hand. You're not going to go through in SQL Server world, you're not going to go through SSMS, and you're not going to go through every single column and update every single column, again, row by agonizing row, with their extended properties, saying whether or not they're sensitive. You need something smarter than that. You need to be smarter with your approach, both to getting classified and staying classified. And then that way you can feed this effort. This effort bridges both compliance and development. Devs don't feel like compliance impacts their life because they just do it as part of the process. It's really simple. But governance and compliance people and audit people, they go, yep, we don't have to worry because we know that the information we're getting from our development team is up to date. Now what we've got to do is now go and focus on these folk over here who put Excel sheets into databases and stuff like that. But, that's a separate thing. So it's a way for these two silos to break down and actually communicate and work more efficiently together.
That's the dream, right?
That's the dream. That's supposedly what we're going for.
We'll work towards that. That's fine. All right. Oh, is it time to move on?
Ah, I see. So, yes.
What's it time for now, Chris?
It's time for. Hang on, let me take a sip of beer. Mouth noises. It's time for the news.
Beautiful, Chris. Beautiful.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
So let's start with sports.
Yeah, go sports.
Oh, yeah. As everyone, I'm sure, knows, it's a huge month for sports at the moment. And the big story on everyone's lips has, of course, been
Giraffe FC.
Yep. The Microsoft Excel Financial Modeling World Cup.
Yeah, I've seen this.
Yeah. So, we have the big 888 battle that happened on the 8th of June. 8 countries took part with 8 financial modeling leaders. Excellent. On the 8th to I can't keep this up. I'll lose it. But yeah, I don't know, some kind of financial modeling competition, as I'm sure you've no doubt heard already. Michael Yarman from, I think it's Yarman or maybe Jarman, I don't know, from Canada won, getting 700 points. Sorry if that was a spoiler for anyone.
Yeah, sorry if you had taped the global data modeling championships. I don't even know where to begin with this, but hey, it's not, they're using Excel. It's not the Excel championships, but I can imagine they're doing some pretty wizard stuff with Excel for data modeling. But the very fact that there is a data modeling world championships, I think says to me that we've made it.
It warms my heart. Next month, hear about Excel artwork. No, seriously though.
Yeah.
When it comes to sports, it's the big news at the moment is, of course, football.
Yes.
With the top story in everyone's minds being the theft of the FIFA 21 source code from EA.
Oh, I was thinking it was more going to be the fact that England were going to lose the Euros.
The what?
The Euros.
Mate, we never entered that. It's always been pounds.
Oh my god. Never mind. Carry on. I'm just going to cringe over here in a corner.
What? Anyway, so EA had about 780 gigs worth of source code stolen and published online. Well, I say published online, being sold online. Yeah, all very interesting.
did they sell you the first part of the source code and then tell you that you had to pay more money to unlock the rest of it? In which case, it was probably an inside job.
Yeah. And no doubt we'll see exactly how much of that source code is exactly the same for FIFA 22 as well. The jokes just write themselves, really. And my final piece of news. So that was as close to a data breach as we're going to get, I'm afraid. Some of you might have recognized a couple of weeks ago now, you had a weird hour where suddenly
the internet stopped working.
The internet failed. So for around about an hour on, I believe it was Tuesday, the 8th of June?
Are you forgetting your days again? Today's Thursday when we're recording.
Yeah. Tuesday, the 8th of June. We struggled to access a lot of our favorite websites like Reddit and The Guardian and Amazon and New York Times. And it's just all because
the amount of time I spend on the New York Times.
I know. Just can't help myself. This is because actually a lot of government websites as well.
True. Gov.uk was down.
This is because of a company who I'm sure you've heard of before called Fastly. So Fastly provide something that's called a content delivery network. What this does is essentially allow ISPs to fast load a lot of media content. So Netflix, for example, use something fairly similar to allow ISPs to more quickly transfer video content to you rather than having you stream it from Las Vegas data centers all the time. So Fastly had a problem. That problem was caused by one of their users quite selfishly changing a setting that they were allowed to change. And for whatever reason, that triggered a bug, and that meant that 85% of the Fastly network was down, which is pretty nuts.
Yeah, that's absolutely bonkers.
And what I guess is crazy here is that like a lot of the internet is, I guess, kind of unknown to most people, but as we kind of move forward and things get more sophisticated, more and more organizations have positioned themselves as quite crucial parts to a lot of things. And this is kind of one of those examples. Yeah, kind of worrying because one outage means the whole lot goes down. It's not quite this net of interweaving high availability we might have thought it was.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's it was just a weird hour. I just remember seeing it on Twitter, like the whole internet basically being down.
Yeah,
or at least the popular internet.
Slack and the Microsoft Office 365 suite was still active. So I had the most productive hour I think I've had in months.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, actually, I have a piece of news as well, Chris. This one comes out of the Redgate camp specifically. And that piece of news is that, so I'm sure you're aware, but just in case everyone else isn't aware, Redgate offers a capability called SQL Data Catalog. And SQL Data Catalog is just kind of what we've been talking about over the past hour or so. It is a system of record for semantic metadata when it comes to columns, across tables, across everything. And it's really nice. It's got a REST API. It's got a PowerShell module. It's effectively something that you can build into your processes, like into Azure DevOps. Shameless plug. Go to plantbasedsql.com and look up on my classification blogs, because I did it. I put data catalog into an Azure DevOps deployment process.
He did do it.
I did do. But one thing that's been missing from data catalog for a little while now is that people expect it to scan data. They expect it to just natively be able to look at columns and say, hey, it looks like you've got a date of birth in here. Even if the column is called blah column 1, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it's a very difficult problem to solve because who do you surface this information to? How do you get people to confirm that that's the case? Like, what algorithms do you use? Do you use machine learning? Do you use basic pattern matching? Do you use a combination of things? Do you enable it by default? There's so many questions, so many things to answer. Well, as of today, as of recording, the 17th of June, 2021, I can confirm that Redgate SQL Data Catalog now has machine learning and data scanning, or at least the V1 of said capabilities, which means that when you point SQL Data Catalog at your database, it will go off, it will have a quick look at some of the data stored within those tables, and it will try to match it up with a certain smaller subset of different types of data, and it will go ahead and say, I think this is an IBAN. I think this is a first name. I think this, that, the other. And, you know, this is paving the way. This is huge functionality to get at this stage. And it's paving the way for more kind of configurable, I'm going to train this model with, you know, first names from France, from Germany, from Slovakia, from Romania, from wherever. But the point is, this V1 is an absolutely massive step forward that's going to allow people to really so much easily get classified in the first instance. Like we said, it's that issue, get classified, stay classified. And this is one of those things that's going to help people get classified all that much faster.
And hopefully so much easily.
Exactly. And you can go over to the exactly. And you can go over to the Redgate website. So that's red-gate.com. And if you go to products and SQL data catalog, you'll be able to find yourself a download, and you can get started with that. Get yourself a free trial right now, and obviously get in touch if you're interested in getting your estate classified as well.
Or request a demo and get Chris Unwin to do it personally.
Get me to show you around Data Catalog and Data Masker, because I love Data Masker, but get me to show you around the magic, the majesty that is Data Catalog, because honestly, you haven't lived until you've seen one of my demonstrations.
Perfect.
Indeed. Well, we've come to the top of the hour, Chris. Isn't it sad?
Top of the hour.
I feel like I've talked way too much in this session, but much like the giraffe that doesn't want to let go of its eucalyptus branch. No, wait, that's koalas. Wait, what do giraffes eat? Much like the giraffe that doesn't want to let go of its branch.
I think hawthorn.
Much like the giraffe that doesn't want to let go of its leaves, I always get a bit of a bee in my bonnet when it comes to data classification, because people don't always do a proper job. For those listening, I just held up my beer bottle. But you've got to do a proper job. Make sure you get everything classified. Ensure you've got that ongoing classification as well. And naturally, the benefits will just be there in their droves for all time.
Sounds great. All right. Well, I think we should end it there. I'm looking forward to next time where we can make a proper Hickory Clan caviar and talk too much about the next topic, whatever that might be.
Yes, indeed. Well, stay tuned. Thank you once again for joining us. Again, always reachable. If you want to reach out, come out, just send an email to red-gate.com DBAle@red-gate.com, or visit red-gate.com/DBAle, or of course, send us a tweet. That is at Kurzweil Chris and at Plant-Based Sequel on Twitter. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Please do. We get very lonely.
We do get very lonely. We want to hear your ideas. What beer do you want us to drink? What do you want us to talk about? Pick any subject. Honestly, I'm open to anything. And I will just make Chris follow me along.
Well, we've got the next month to look forward to of research and painstaking, endless rehearsal for the next episode of DBAle.
Yes,
please contact us to give us something else to do.
Absolutely. But for now, it's thank you very, very much from me.
Cheers.
Oh, all right. And a thank you from
I guess.
and a thank you from Chris. But for now, it's cheers.
Bye. Donk.
Cool.
How was that for you?